I know I've been playing a lot of best of one lately, but truly best of three is completely insufferable right now. I really do feel like it's almost unplayable unless you like facing Grixis, which I don't. So honestly, I've been having a lot of fun in best of one. And it is really reassuring to have that as a backup at this point, a format that I didn't enjoy previously. But now I'm actually having a lot of fun finding new decks to play, trying to figure out how to, solve quote unquote the metagame. And this is what I've landed on currently as theoretically the best deck in the format. Um, Essentially, monocolored decks seem to be really, really good in Best of One due to the hand smoothing and the fact that you're going to be starting with a lot more lands than you would otherwise for the total amount of lands you're playing. So here in this case, we have 21 lands, and I'm getting about 2 or 3. Plus, I have Farmhand in my deck, so on average, I will almost always hit 3 mana, which is really important to start, curving out at least. Like maybe you play Bankbuster on 2, and then you draw on 3, find your 4th land. That way, you'll always hit your lands on curve with this deck, and that feels really, really good. Especially when we have very powerful spells to cast and a lot of controlling elements. I think what makes mono white truly shine in Best of One is obviously the card Lay Down Arms. 1 mana, exile pretty much anything that you're gonna find that's at like 1 mana to exile pretty much anything that you'll ever find threatening ever on the battlefield is really important. Also, the fact that Mono White has access to like very powerful early game sweepers, one of them being Temporary Lockdown, which goes through cards like Escape, Laurent's Escape, I think it's called, that gives Hexproof and Indestructible. That card's being played right now. It's also very good against the bunch of tokens that are being made in either soldiers or in like some kind of Rakdos piles that are using Fable, they're using Bankbuster as well. And the fact that, in some cases, exiling your own permanence is actually a good thing against Invoke Despair decks. So for example, if you have a Bankbuster or a Farmhand and your opponent has a Bankbuster and like a Kikijiki token, then you can use Temporary Lockdown, and then eventually when they go to Invoke Despair, well, you're both getting something back. So you're denying them a card because it's an enchantment, and you protect your other enchantments from being sacked, like Wedding Announcement, which is a lot more powerful. And you're also both getting back your permanents because you might be exiling your own stuff. Also, the fact that you can exile the clue is really important. But other than that's about it for Temporary Lockdown. Then Depopulate is like really good in this metagame. A lot of creatures are actually monocolored unless you're facing Grixis, I think. I don't really know. Maybe against soldiers, but either way, giving a card to soldiers is not a big deal. So you have really good sweepers, really good removal, but you also have really good permanents. One of them is Steel Seraph, which kind of pushes me to play 4 Bankbusters just because of the low downside that playing Bankbuster has when you include Steel Seraph. So usually Bankbuster is not great. It'll be 2 mana, no board presence immediately, and then on turn 3, you're probably not going to be able to crew it either in mono white, so that's trouble. But with Steel Seraph, if you're on the play, for example, or even on the draw, you can Bankbuster on 2, Steel Seraph on 3, crew it, and give it lifelink to regain some lost health, which is really good. It initiates the race, and it also gains you a lot of HP. So that's really, really good. Wedding Announcement is mostly used as a chump blocker every turn until it gives you the Anthem, which is going to outscale most of like Mono Red's removal spells, for example. It's really good. Serra Paragon is actually very difficult to deal with in this format. 4 toughness is kind of hard, especially because there are a lot of Mono Red players, and they don't have 4 damage removal spells. Well, they do have the 5 damage, 3 mana instant, but you have so many targets for that on average this will live and will dominate the game. Especially because you're playing a lot of really, really good 2-drops. The Farmhand giving you that land I was talking about earlier, and the Coven, when you have 3 or more creatures with different powers, it can transform into a lifelinker, which is fantastic. So not only will it give you that card advantage, it can also become a threat in the mid game. Cathar Commando is really, really, really good. 2 mana, flash 3/1, pretty much acts as a removal spell in most cases, and otherwise it will just act as a destroy artifact or enchantment, which is really good. And the fact that you can bring it back with Serra Paragon is even better. Wandering Emperor I'm kind of down on this card. It does feel a little bit weak, but it's still a good card in most situations. It just feels pretty bad when people are actually running a lot of Vigilance. And I've been seeing a decent amount of Vigilance in the format. And it's pretty frustrating when you can't use the minus either Vigilance or Protection. So like Laurent's Escape is really good against this card too. A lot of things make this a little bit underwhelming when you could play a permanent, but in some cases it will be a blowout, so it's worth playing. We have one copy of Farewell because why not, and one copy of Sanctuary Warden. It's hard to play a lot of expensive spells right now. In best of one, ideally I would want 2, but it's kind of difficult to get to 6 in the first place. And I feel like if I was going to play 2 Sanctuary Warden, I would rather have 4 Serra Paragon because it kind of accomplishes the same thing in terms of card advantage, except this is also a 4-drop. So it's really important that you have access to more early game while also having something that gives you that card advantage in late game. So it kind of fulfills the same role, maybe a little bit less powerful on 6 exactly, but a little bit less risky to play as a 4-drop instead of a 6-drop. At first I didn't have many non-planes in the deck because I figured you'd want Laydown to come down on curve in most scenarios, except some matchups actually were not against aggro, and that is when I really felt the pain of having only planes, because I ended up flooding and almost losing the match because of it. And then I figured, one Roadside Reliquary, and then I added a second one since I really got a lot of value out of the first one. And I was like, okay, 2 might be fine. I do think you do not want to go above 2. But between 1 and 2 is the sweet spot, because you also want to make sure this laydown arms does exile anything that you need it to exile when you need it to. But yeah, that's about it for this deck. Essentially, you're going to have very good matchups against mono red. You're going to have very good matchup against the Angelfire deck. You're going to have good matchup against control decks, because this plays more permanent-based controlling elements. So instead of like purely being a non-creature based deck and trying to remove everything, it's actually playing its own threats. So you're going to have a good matchup into those other decks that are trying to control the game. But yeah, I do think the black decks in Invoke Despair are maybe a little bit difficult. It really depends, because those decks have to kind of change the way they're built. Just because they're facing a lot of mono red, they're playing a lot of like life gainy things, and those things don't really do anything against us. So they're playing more defensively than would be ideal against a deck like ours. So we're still gonna have like a really good time controlling them out, and we do have enchantments to sack to Invoke Despair, so it's not the worst thing ever. But it's also not the best matchup. Also, they mostly play cards like Cut Down because they kind of have to, but Cut Down, if you look at this, it doesn't really hit our important targets, those being Serra Paragon and Steel Seraph. So that's really important as well. And we don't really care about them cutting down anything else. Oh, I forgot to mention the Borrowed Time, I guess. Some people have suggested the Flicker one, the Flicker enchantment. I don't remember what it's called. But essentially, the reason I'm playing Borrowed Time over that other spell, if I find it, Touch the Spirit Realm, is because of Planeswalkers, and most specifically Liliana, which is a card that those black decks are going to play. And, as I mentioned before, the black decks are probably the only matchup that is giving us a tiny bit of trouble instead of it being easy all the way through. But the Borrowed Time really helps out with dealing with Lily, and it also can be sacked to the Invoke Despair, so that's also really good to have an enchantment instead of like something like Fateful Absence that will give them the card anyways. I'd rather give them a Lily when they invoke than give them a random card maybe in some cases, but this is mostly to hopefully not be sacked by Invoke and permanently exile that Liliana for 3 mana. And if it does leave the battlefield, well, we always have Serra Paragon. That's another bonus there. So you're denying them a card with the Invoke, and you're protecting your wedding announcements, most importantly. And then you can get it back with borrowed with the Serra Paragon potentially. So that's another thing. But yeah, that's gonna do it. That will be my breakdown of this deck, and yeah, I'm gonna play some matches here, and we'll find out if we need to make some changes or not. So Let's get right into it. And if I had like one more draw, maybe if I didn't exile the Gix and exile the Shield Red instead. This is not great. I'm gonna do this. Another Grixis deck. This is... I don't know what to say. It's very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And I get mana screwed after mulliganing once. The hand smoother didn't work there. Well, pretty far from dealing with that. Still no natural land, which hurts quite a bit. Gonna need one for next turn. Otherwise, I'm gonna get wrecked by Shield Red again. They always have the same opener too. This is incredible. Hopefully this is enjoyable to some extent. Seeing me lose over and over to really insane insane variance here. But I might still win. This is still a relatively okay position because I drew that land, but we'll see. And here's the situation I was talking about earlier, with the Steel Seraph and the Bankbuster being relevant, getting me that 4 HP. Hopefully they don't have anything to deal with that. Honestly, I could have used the Depop, but I feel like developing Steel Seraph is pretty important as well. And if they do kill it, then this might be useful later. Pilfer. Okay. Pilfer's fine. Okay, their deck list is not great. I still need a land, unfortunately. That is not a land. I don't know if I want to develop this in case they have Brotherhood's End. Probably one of my first, well, not my first, I guess, but today I've gotten like weird land draws, but this is actually my first mana screw, per se. I'm still mana screwed. This is unfortunate. This is very unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know what to do here. I'm just gonna try to play it out, but hard to not be able to cast my spells more efficiently here. Could just depop. See. It's funny because yesterday I was winning literally almost every match. So this is unfortunate. I wish I could showcase some wins, but yeah. I mean, if everything went well for me this game, I would have had a decent chance, I say. I think they have another counter spell, which is why I'm doing it this way. They don't have another Cathar Commando, which again is mostly acting as a removal spell in this deck. Flash 3/1's pretty good. Depending on if they have a braids, they might not even be able to deal with it. Wow, that's really good, huh? Very good. Okay, so they're gonna counter my Depop, most likely. It's a little bit unfortunate. Is it though? It's not that bad. They would have to sack a creature, and then I can still flash into Cathar Commando. Okay, well that works for me. It's giving them an extra spell, which is not great, but not much I can do about it. Alright, that's okay. At least they got 2 draws out of this. They lose their blood token, that's actually pretty important as well. Not the end of the world. Again, we have cards in the graveyard. Once I find a Serra Paragon, be back in business. So they don't have a counterspell, which is a little bit interesting. And I doubt they have a removal spell for this, if I had to guess. You can draw a card by playing this as well. Oh, that's perfect. Get some value out of this lockdown before. Oh, okay. Well, that's that's great. See, I guess that was a good showcase of me being really, really far behind and crawling back into the game due to the pure amount of like good spells that are in the deck. And again, Grixis has to adapt to best of one in some way, and usually that direction they take is more anti-aggro, which is really good for us, giving us more time to potentially set up winning board state. I'm gonna reroll this. A lot of 2 land openers, which is not what I'm used to with this deck. Usually get like 3 or a 2 and a farmhand. Yeah, this is gonna have to be a mulligan. This is also pretty bad. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of Sanctuary Warden in my opening hand. Not great. Don't tell me it's another Grixis deck. Okay, is it maybe? Is it? Should be a good matchup. Depending on what they're doing exactly. Guess we'll find out. If it's the artifact deck, I feel like it should be okay. So I have Cathar Commandos, but it's not fantastic. It's just alright. Could be a counterspell, but I don't want them to cast a 3 mana instant that ramps here. Yep. Okay, it is what I thought. Okay, I found the Farewell though. Finding the Farewell is pretty important, and I do have Cathar Commando to deal with an artifact at some point. I have 3 Cathar Commandos total, and then the Serra Paragon can bring them back, so that's looking pretty good. 1 borrowed time as well that they can't deal with, and the Farewell. Overall, decent options. Decent permanent coverage for artifacts. I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. And I also have 2 copies of temporary lockdown to deal with the power stones if they get out of hand. See if it ever comes to that. I do need some lands. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit unfortunate because I didn't get to like pop it in response, but not much I can do about it. That could be a little bit annoying as well. I think I take the power stones away here. That seems to make sense. Could also take the power stones away here. It's pretty okay. Not great. I'm just trying to stall until Farewell, essentially. Which feels like a pretty far away thing here. Especially on a mana screw. But hopefully I can get out of this. Sure. Yeah, it's okay. I'm flipping these into 2/2s anyway, so this doesn't really do that much. Be happy with that. I think I'm going to catch this now. Maybe not. Don't really want them activating that. They'll get the trade on my Wandering Emperor, but does that really matter? I don't think so.
I'm not overconfident. You're just under. You're done.
This is most likely not going to do much against a deck with a bunch of sweepers. That's annoying. I mean, this matchup should be okay on paper, but I guess on paper doesn't really mean much, huh? Gonna let them sink 6 into that so I get the draw.
Back to wandering.
Trying to find a sweeper myself here. Possible. That's annoying. Not the worst. That's not great. That's also not great without multiple lands here. That's not very good, but I'm happy about that. We take those. That's actually really good for me. But I think they're gonna cast, most likely, they're gonna cast the big Skitter Beam Battalion next turn, which could be trouble. Probably means I need to hold up the Fateful Absence. Now the issue is that if I don't find another land, we are screwed. We'll see what happens. Okay. That's fine, and they had to discard a Braid. They played Otawara, they play that, okay. And that's fine as long as I find a land. Our Stone's not terrible. You can kind of utilize it. But, I really need this land. Be random if I get it or not. I got it. Pretty good. All graveyards isn't actually relevant, so let's not do it. Artifacts. Alright, now I have 2 3/3s, which gives me enough defense for the battalion. And I leave my graveyard intact for Serra Paragon, so pretty good. Hopefully. I don't have any mana up though, that's a little bit scary. Weak Stone's fine. Won't be able to deal with Steel Seraph, which is really important. And especially because they've discarded a bunch of Abrades, that's also really good for me. I think I might cast this as a 3/3. Oh, never mind. I'm casting it out. Never mind. Never mind. It's going Gonna be a 6-7-7-6. Pretty good. Or means that's okay. Not terrible. Not great though. But it does mean that I'm probably drawing a non-land here. Good one actually. That's probably better than interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting, yeah. Like this could be good. Problem with it is that I won't have mana for Battalion. If that comes down, I'm in trouble. Especially if they have interaction on this turn. But I guess I'd be in trouble either way. Does Lifelink get out of range of a hasty leveler from the graveyard? Okay, that's scary, but they've drawn all 4 Stern Lessons, which is pretty bad for me. See what happens. Oh, Counterspell, they do play it. Ah, the last of Braid. Unfortunate. All 4 Stern Lessons, all 4 Braids. Oh wait, no. Not all 4 Braids. 3? I thought that was 4 for some reason. 1, 2, 3... Oh no, it was 4. Okay. I just missed it. Okay, the spot is not fantastic, but it's not the worst either. If I can flip this, I think we're guaranteed a win. That's gonna be difficult. Okay, good. I'm gonna say if they draw something really strong here, probably lose the game. That is really good. They don't have any more braids. So now it's just Cityscape Leveler. And I have answers for it. Theoretically, if I draw a land, I'll just exile it. I should be able to draw a land in 2. Alright, good. Very good. Alright, so I did some thinking after that match about like kind of getting mana screwed in general and overall card selection, and I feel like this fits in quite well into the deck. Now the problem is I didn't know really what to cut, so I ended up cutting a Fateful Absence, but I don't think that's correct. I'm trying to think about what exactly I'd want to part with here. But that's pretty much the only thing I can possibly think of that makes sense. Although losing the Fateful Absence does matter against haste decks, which is a little bit annoying. We do have Cathar Commandos as like kind of removal spells, and most hasters don't really go above 3 toughness, so I think it's okay. I believe we should try this out. Sorry about the background noise if you are hearing that. I guess I'll turn on the music for a bit, just because they're chopping down a tree right now. And it's pretty annoying. Hopefully that's decent volume. Let me check. That's probably fine. Alright, let's keep going here. Pretty good hand on the play. 3 landers ideal with this deck. It's pretty much what you're aiming for most of the time. It looks like a mono red deck, the classic. Which is a good matchup, and I'm on the play. This is more of the enchantment based burn version, most likely. Yeah, Epicure. Alright. It's okay. Feel okay with this play here. Going for the lifelink. The only reason I did that is because I have Wandering Emperor. I think if I didn't have Wandering Emperor, I would probably choose to stay on blocks. Should be able to like block this when inevitably they kill it. And since I have a guaranteed life gain, I'm not like that concerned about my health here overall. Or just keep curving out and see what happens. That's a very good draw. This way it's pretty easy to play around the enchantment in this case because they have no more board. Alright, that's unfortunate. I'm gonna go in with the Reckoner Bankbuster so that I can protect this Paragon from dying, so I can bring back the Steel Seraph. Alright, we're in a pretty good spot. I had to mute myself a little bit there. There was a lot of background noise. Okay, yeah, pretty good spot. This is ideal, pretty much. I could have played the Sanctuary Warden, but getting a little bit of life in is pretty important, I think. Both plays are totally fine. In the off chance that this dies, I'd rather get the Steel Seraph out as fast as possible. If they do manage to finish this off, I will proc the Reliquary so I can bring it back. But looks like that's not the case here. Could still do it. Very nice. Alright, that's gonna be the last game for today. There's too much background noise here. I mean, I don't even know if you can hear it, but I don't. Just to be safe, I'm gonna end it here. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the vid. I'll be back with more of this deck tomorrow, probably. See ya.